Dear students, good morning. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 22nd May 2018. The first article, The Classroom as the Instructor's Castle. So here, this article discusses about lack of innovation among Indian students. If we observe carefully, India is made up of middle class now, and middle class prioritizes security over risk. So, an entrepreneurship needs a risk. An innovation and implementation of this innovation, scaling up of it, needs a risk taking. So, in this scenario, education policy is geared up to the interests of the middle class, which is bound to build the jobs rather than innovators and entrepreneurs. And in this scenario, the regulatory system also favors the same. If you talk about University Grants Commission, it tries to regulate the academicians to the micro level. And academic performance indicators, they try to quantify the work rather than looking into the quality of work. So, one important thing in the academic performance indicators is the number of articles written for journals. This has given rise to predatory journalism. It means a journal or else an article is written in journal for updating or validating a biodata rather than for true research interests. So that's why academic performance indicators need to be guided by teaching, research, student satisfaction. So, in this context, the student's feedback can be a right tool towards improvising the academics in the universities. So, these feedback mechanisms have to be created. And openness and then participatory approach in learning, and above all, working while learning, all these will provide for a new outlook for the Indian students. It means they have to come out of their books, see the real world, exposed to the bigger world, and has to be ready to face the challenge. This is what this article talks about. So the classroom as the instructor's castle. So in the classroom, an academic freedom, autonomy that provides for greater output from the instructor rather than routinization, straitjacketing of the academics. On the Great Asian Highway, so here we talk about South Asia. South Asia is the least integrated region in the world. Intra-regional trade is less than 5%. Why is it so? So one of the major reasons is countries compete rather than cooperate over here. In this context, India-Pakistan, India-China relations, these become very critical. And the second aspect is, though promises, understandings are made, they are not being converted into fruitful outcomes. In BIMSTEC and in SARC, many a times MOUs are signed to build regional connectivity, but there is no serious effort on that front. And the third most important thing is the One Belt One Road initiative, which is brought in by China. It divides the South Asian countries. You know that India did not endorse it till now based on its sovereign concerns. And though the other countries have endorsed it, so to what extent they can take up this project, what will be the challenges, the debt challenges they are going to face is still uncertain. So, in this context, a little cooperation between the countries can be helpful. So, here we have more groups like BIMSTEC. Recently, we got BBIN and then SARC. So, there are many groupings, but there is no effective integration on the ground. Now, here BBIN is a bit successful for regional infrastructure integration with motor vehicle agreement. So, though Bhutan Parliament did not pass it, it has respectfully stated the other countries to move forward for the Bangladesh, India, and Nepal to build the connectivity. And they may join at a later date. So, this kind of understanding is necessary. If we see, because of India and Pakistan relations, SARC is being held up. So, cooperation and coordination has to guide us rather than contestation and competition in building the integration across the country, across the Asia, and to provide for prosperity to the region. What's in an election? This is about election and democracy. You know, elections are the means, and the democracy is an end. So, what does this statement mean? So, election may reflect different things to different people. It is about equality, it is about choice, it is about accountability. So there's an excessive emphasis of choice, choosing a person, electing a person. That's what we see the election as, or electing a party to form the government. What democracy is, not what happens once in 5 years, it is what happens between these 5 years. The government so formed is reflecting the interests of the people or not. To what extent the power held by these people is made accountable by the citizens themselves. To what extent the government feels itself as a trustee of the citizens. If this sense of accountability, control over the power do not exist, then democracy becomes mere a means rather than an end. Our democracy will be defined as elections, and it is a narrow perspective. Democracy has to be more about rights. Controlling the power is another way, protecting the rights of the citizens. And second, in a representative democracy, an elected leadership is a trustee who has to distribute the public goods equally across the citizens. Equality does not mean just to the political functionality. Equality also does mean it is towards social and also economic functionality. So it means it is not just about political rights, it's also about socio-economic rights, substantive rights. So it means the DPSP matters in the or after the elections, and fundamental rights matters after the elections. So ensuring these things is the essence of democracy. That's how this article has been put up as. I can state it as this way. There is a procedural aspect to democracy and substantive aspect. The procedural democracy signifies with elections. Substantive democracy signifies with the rights of the people, that is both political and substantive rights. That's how I can put it as. The Meghalaya example. You know that Meghalaya has enacted this Social Audit Act. It is the first state to do that. The name of the act is Meghalaya Community Participation and Social Audit Act. That's how I remember it as. So, this social audit, you know that people directly verifying the performance accounts of the government rather than through an intermediary. So, a Grama Sabha becomes an effective instrument to the conduct of social audit. And if we evaluate this law, we can see many of the outcomes which can improve the program effectiveness in India. So, one is it has increased the public awareness of the people about their entitlements. And second, the citizen oversight over the implementation of the programs. The third, it has provided for effective grievance redressal mechanism. Previously, also in another article which has come up, which showed that how the grievance redressal has actually improved through social audit. So we did a case study on that in the previous newspapers. And then fault or else any corruption or related practices are also being coming out through the social audit. It means social audit previously is thought to find corruption and mistakes, but today it is an all-encompassing activity which has brought the citizen central to the program implementation. That's how we can state it as. And then victory and violence. You know that panchayat elections were held in West Bengal. There was a lot of violence. And one significant change that is happening is the Congress and communist space is being replaced by the growth of BJP. Or BJP is taking over their space. It is going to rise as principal opponent. So obviously it keeps Trinamool Congress in defense, and this can be stated as a reason for the rise of violence. In though Trinamool Congress enjoys the majority, enjoys public support, still the rise of BJP right wing is seen as a threat. So that's the reason why Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee is calling for non-BJP alliance across the country. Miles to go. It is about bankruptcy code. You know that insolvency bankruptcy code is expected to solve the problem of NPAs to an extent. So if NPAs are not solved, the banking system has to be protected through recapitalization. It means more funds have to be infused into the system by the government. If recapitalization has to happen, the taxes have to be raised onto the people. And common man is the one who suffer because of this. So here, IBC is slowly showing its effectiveness. In this context, recently, the Bhushan Steels is bankrupt, or it is having liability of more than 50,000 crores. Finally, the assets were sold to Tata Steel around 35,000 crore rupees. To that extent, the banks have realized that money. So, previously in the settlement, the banks used to get around 25%. Recent months, it was decreased to 11% of the total loan it has rented. Here, if you see, it is close to 70%. It means that the banking sector is able to realize higher amounts through insolvency and bankruptcy code, through this resolution process. But if resolution process has to be effective, more bidders has to participate. It means criteria to qualify the bidders have to be relaxed. So already an insolvency law committee is looking into these matters. If more participants are encouraged in bidding, it provides or it makes the company to realize a better value. And also, a quick resolution process will defreeze the assets and brings them into production process. So, if resolution processes did not happen quickly, obviously the number of cases will increase, and months together the assets will not be used for production. Ultimately, it will lead to fall in growth. There are two things. There has to be more bidders and there has to be competition to gain the stressed assets. And the second thing is the timely resolution is very much important for IBC. These are the two improvements. Kerala center joined hands to counter Nipah virus. So, Nipah virus, it's a paramyxovirus. The paramyxovirus means the same class as like influenza, and it affects neural system. Especially, it causes the swelling of brain, and reservoir is bad, and it gets transmitted to humans through pig. So, Nipah virus, 4 deaths have occurred in Kerala, and it can be a probable prelims question. Are epidemics and control of epidemics in India can be a probable mains question. Had extremely productive talks with Putin. It is about India-Russia relations. Today we have to see these relations from a different context. How India has moved close to US, and does Russia sees India's closeness to US as a zero-sum game? Probably yes. So Russia, in counter to this, have moved close to Pakistan. So here, when BRICS summit held in Goa, Russian ambassador has clearly questioned India's interest to include Pakistan in a terror list, or Pakistan as a sponsor of state terrorism. So its voice is becoming more favorable to Pakistan, and also Pakistan and Russia, they did joint military exercises. Russia is also willing to supply weapons to Pakistan. So a counter to this, India has made a bigger deal around, I think, $3 billion to buy these S-400 systems, missile systems. Right, I may be factually wrong over here. Please verify it once. So in this context, India has become a member of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So obviously it is seen as an opponent to NATO. So Eastern NATO it is called as. And Iran is also a member. So how India's closeness to US will reflect on this. And the second aspect is India-Russia have a strong defense partnership. Today, India is trying to diversify its defense procurement. How it is going to reflect. Third, India-Russia military and industrial relations, how it will affect or impact Make in India project. And nuclear relations, if we observe the civil nuclear deal that has transformed into potential on the ground, it is only India-Russia civil nuclear cooperation. Other than Kudankulam, nothing has come up after India entered into this particular nuclear cooperation agreements. So this shows Russia is still a trusted friend. And how to make effective use of Russia and its growing resurgence in global politics is an important concern for India. Here, Prime Minister states that the strategic partnership between India and Russia has changed to special strategic partnership. What the word special has brought in is not explained over here, but we need to see that in a different context now. That's what my opinion is. Around the world in 254 days, INS Tarini, it has circumnavigated the globe. It was led by female crew headed by Lieutenant Commander Vartika Joshi. INS Tarini for prelims. Sadr calls for inclusive government. Now, this is very important with regard to Middle East is concerned. So in the Middle East, the governments are two types. One are elected but authoritative. guided by religious values. The head is Iran. Other are the autocratic rulers like Saudi, guided by Saudi Arabia, Arab leadership. In this context, Iraq is an elected democracy, but it is not guided by clerics. But those sectarian divisions are there. Almost all the sects are by and large equal in population in Iraq. So Iraq can be a first successful example for democracy in the Middle East if it is able to establish a strong coalition government. And if the coalition is broad based with different sects and power sharing across the groups, then it can be cited as a successful example across the world. That's why I have covered this article. No excise cut till oil breaches target. You know that oil prices are rising. It leads to inflation. It will have the multiplier effect. It will slows the growth. On the international front, rise in oil prices will widen our current account deficit, and this will eat away all our forex reserves. So, in this context, domestically, what the government can do, it can reduce the excise duties. Almost among the diesel you are buying, 40 rupees goes to the government, state and union government. So, bringing that under GST so that the companies can claim input credit on the petroleum products. And second, reducing the excise and other duties. These are essential. Finally, I gave you the notes that will be available at likes.in/civils prep. Thank you very much and all the best.